Welcome back to Afternoon Express. John Sanei was a self-made millionaire with 6 restaurants by the age of 27. He was almost unstoppable. However, he hit rock bottom and lost everything.
It was only later in his life that he found his true purpose, and he's now a best-selling author of 2 books, one of South Africa's top futurists and trend specialists. Plus, he speaks at events all over the world. Welcome to The Laugh, John.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction.
Yeah.
Except that first part. That wasn't nice. The losing of everything. But anyway.
He's a futurist and believes that anything is possible. Ladies and gentlemen, please will you welcome Mr. John Sanei!
Hey! Let's go.
I'm in Nice. We're in LAX, Singularity University. The streets of New York, beautiful Johannesburg.
Have I gone too far? Do you detect something different? If you look inside my head, would you say something's missing? If you could give all your riches just to say the word, would you risk it? These politicians so old, can't tell if the dead where they living.
We are global citizens.
I truly believe we live in the most fascinating time known to man.
I'm highly excited speaking to them about mastering the art of disruption. Thinking bigger, being more courageous. Exposure and mindset.
Said I'm at my prime.
Wow.
Super impressive.
Wow.
Super impressive.
Thank you so much.
You know, knowing you and knowing what a down-to-earth person you are, and then watching that and just seeing this maverick, I'm just so struck by you underplay this stuff so much. Why?
And I don't know what I'm supposed to do, walk around like, hey, check me, check me.
Is it something you learned over time, or were you... take us through the journey of hitting rock bottom.
I've always been an early adopter. So I've always been a trend specialist. If I think back to when I was like 6, 7 years old, I could always tell like Reebok was going to be big, or like these brands back then. When South Africa, they really didn't know many of these brands. And so that sort of early adoption always got me to look for the next thing. And I never realized that was what a trend specialist is really, or a futurist is really somebody who's enthused about the future, bringing it back, categorizing it and contextualizing it and sharing it with people so that people can build the courage to make bigger decisions about the future.
I always believe that an entrepreneur is born. The same way as you can teach someone to play a musical instrument, it doesn't mean they're going to be a great musician. So the same thing with entrepreneurship. So you've always had this like winning business streak in you, I suppose, from a young age, and then your restaurants. And I also heard that you were into a bit of sideline dancing. What do you think that is in somebody that separates them from the rest in being a good businessman?
I think there's many different reasons that get people to be good business people. I specifically had daddy issues, and I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. Yeah. And so my entrepreneurial drive was actually quite broken because there's a saying I use in my second book that says, are you running away from the darkness, or are you running towards the light? Yeah. And one of them is anxious and running away from this dragon that's going to eat it, and the other one's building towards something. I was running away from the darkness. I was running away from poverty. And I was running away from ever having any financial constraints like I did when I was younger. Yeah. And that is the biggest problem, because if you're ever running away from something, it's going to catch you eventually.
Yeah. So when you eventually found yourself at rock bottom, what are the rungs that you placed on the ladder to get yourself out of there? Because I mean, it's quite a journey. If you're saying you built from a broken place, how did you then reconstruct your framework of how to build?
That's a great question. I think it's the first thing you've got to realize is that most people don't realize they're depressed, or don't even realize they're being victims. And a lot of society has a default notion of being a victim. Complaining, shaming, blaming, not taking responsibility, that's being a victim. Being entitled, that's being a victim. And first you've got to become aware that you are actually suffering from a perspective that's not allowing you to go forward. The second thing is you've got to realize that our lives are made up of rituals, and these rituals become habits, these habits become behaviors, and these behaviors become our personality. And so we've got to break down our personality into these very moment-by-moment rituals and allow ourselves to focus on each one of them and switch them slowly, slowly, in order for us to change our personality. You know, we don't change our future. I mean, we don't choose our future, we choose our rituals and habits. And that becomes our future. And so for me, it was about breaking it down.
Do you think failure is necessary to become successful? Like, I mean, you've got it all, but yet you still failed at some point and have had to, you know, bring yourself up again.
I think there's different types of failures. I think some people get sick You know, that's a failure of health.
Yeah.
Some people have bankruptcies like I did. Some people have divorces. Some people have family being lost, being passed away in a car accident. These are all sort of catalysts that are required in order for us to shatter out of our perspective that we built for ourselves. And so we all have these catalysts. The trick is how quickly do you make these a conscious memory rather than an unconscious memory? How quickly do you move away from blaming what had happened to you to taking it as something that powers you up? You know, and if you think about anybody that's really successful, they reached really low places and decided to turn it. But a lot of people get stuck there. And that's also a big problem. You know, depression is a big problem in our society.
It is a problem. You're now on your second book, Magnetize.
Yeah.
And they're both bestsellers.
Yes.
And you plan to write a book every year.
I've got my third one. I've already started my third one.
Wow, that's incredible. So what's Magnetize about?
So my first book was about how big, how bold, and how courageous are your questions about the future. If you understand technology and our access to the world, this has never happened before. You have access to 4 billion people right now on the internet. I mean, that's just unheard of in history. My second book, Magnetize, was a maturing of that question towards how elegant, deliberate, and conscious is your thinking about the future. I think, as society, we have to start seeing business as something that's able to do good for society as well as make you a profit. I think the days are gone for us to have this lack of transparency where balance sheets are everything that we base our businesses on, creating absolute chaos in our environment, disengaged workforce, a lack of ability to innovate. All these things are based on us prioritizing balance sheet over consumer or environment. And I think business just needs to become more elegant, and we need to grow up and become more aware and conscious of what our behavior is doing to the society around us and the environment around us. And I call it the teenage boy syndrome, and it's almost as if the world's stuck in this sort of teenage boy syndrome of needing more. I don't think it's healthy, actually. I think it's gotten us to a great place, but I think it's time for us to mature.
You call yourself a futurist. What exactly is that?
Well, I've never really called myself a futurist. Other people call me a futurist, but really what's somebody who is able to categorize and contextualize the future. You know, there are so many trends out there. There are so many different things that are popping. Which one actually allows you to make a better decision about your sector, your business, and your life? And so it's really about bringing that clarity into a boardroom and allowing the decision makers to build the courage to go, okay, I see that trend that's moving that way. It might not be relevant to what we're doing right now, but that's definitely where our sector is moving towards. So it's just about making people more comfortable and optimistic about the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And we're going to be making a lot of people more optimistic about the future because they can stand a chance to win your book, Magnetized. So to win a copy of the book, Magnetized, value at 250 Rand, SMS the keyword win and your name and your city to 33650. SMSs cost R1.50 each and free SMSs do not apply. Competition closes today, the 12th of November, at 2 minutes to midnight. T's and C's on afternoonexpress.co.za.